Okay, we're gonna get started because it is 5 o'clock on the dot. So once everyone, make sure you're sitting with your groups. I'm just gonna wait for confirmation that the Zoom is working. All good. Perfect. So a few weeks ago, we had Darby lecture, but for those who don't know me or who have not seen me lurking in the corner or running around with a microphone, my name is Jason. I am one of the TAs for this class. I have a background in political science and international relations, both from Virginia Tech. And today we are going to be talking about disciplinary collaboration and critique. So as the first slide said, you should be sitting with your groups today, your disciplinary groups. If you're not, we're going to get into a group assignment pretty early on and we'll be able to help you find them. Tuesday, Thursday, I know there's some mixing, different things. So just make sure when we do get to attendance, you scan the right QR code. But we'll get into that in a little bit. But to start, you got a little bit of a preview. What did we talk about last week? Can anybody tell me? I also really like cold calling. I know most people aren't used to that, but I will cold call during this class. Somewhere over there? Yeah. Yes, we did talk about citations, but what can you go into a little more detail beyond just citations? What did we talk about with them? Absolutely. So how to represent your discipline with literature and then how to cite within that literature. We covered 2 other topics last week. What else did we talk about? Just shout it out if you think you know it. The next one was critical thinking. Can anybody tell me what critical thinking is or how we talked about it last week? Or has the snow days gotten everyone? No need to cold call. Hold off on the cold calling. But we talked about critical thinking, and what that means is just starting to think about the world in different perspectives, maybe from what we're used to, and then breaking that down within your groups, in your different majors, and really think about how your major can think critically about the different problems that we're going to solve, especially wicked problems. We also talked about information gathering, which falls a little bit into the citations along the line of how do we collect information, how do we gather, and how do we really begin to research within your disciplines. And that is going to become very important as we continue out throughout the rest of the class and throughout the rest of the semester, as well as your college career. But today we're going to talk about critique. So you had some out of class work that was due before class. So now that it is 5:03, you should definitely have that submitted by now. But we are going to talk about critique, and critique is very important for a wide variety of different reasons. So you should have read the guide to critique. I'm going to give everyone just maybe a few minutes, talk with your group, maybe like a minute to 2 minutes. What key points of information about critique did you identify within the guide? So you can talk with your groups maybe like 15, 30 seconds. Then I will ask people and I'll ask Darby to run the microphone to somebody. Okay, so does somebody want to tell me what was one of the key points of information about critique that they learned while reading?
Receiving feedback is important for your growth as a worker, student, employee, learner.
So no matter what point of life you're in, no matter whether you're a freshman, junior, senior, graduate student, professor, critique is very important, and it's important to not only give critique, but also to receive critique and be open to critique. It's how we grow as people. What is the difference between constructive feedback and deconstructive criticism? This is very important.
So destructive criticism can be like vague, nitpicky, kind of ineffective, while constructive criticism helps to build up and improve the piece of work.
Absolutely. So if I responded to that answer and I just said, I guess that was an answer, that would be destructive criticism. Not really helpful, not really formative, but you spoke loudly, I could hear you, you were positive in your answer. That is constructive feedback. And that's what you want. You never want to be tearing somebody down. So think about whenever you're giving constructive feedback, a good style that most people are familiar with is the compliment sandwich. Start with a compliment, then something you can work on, finish with a compliment, have some meat in there, maybe add a few more here and there. But you never want to be overbearing. I like to say you definitely want that nice bounce. You can't have a sandwich without the 2 pieces of bread. So make sure you are giving that compliment at some point, but also not saying everything's great. Find something that the person can work on. Even if you think it's the best piece, there's always something that somebody can improve on and that you can recommend for them. And then why should feedback be a dialogue? This is something very important as well. Maybe somebody from this side of the room wants to answer. I'm gonna let Professor Hinshaw just pick somebody and give them the mic.
So I said that engaging in dialogue allows you to share your perspective while also like asking clarifying questions. And then through dialogue, you can brainstorm how to improve.
So you hit the nail on the head. It has to be a dialogue because it's important to ask questions if you are not familiar with the feedback. If you are confused on what somebody says, always ask a clarifying question. If you didn't know some information on an assignment, you would ask the TAs or the professor, I have a question. If you get the same thing on feedback from us, especially as we get into your portfolio pieces, ask us. You'll receive comments either in the actual rubric itself or down in just the little description box below. You'll constantly be receiving some form of comments, critique from us. So if you do have questions on that and you want to clarify, email us, ask us. We're free during office hours. There's a lot of different ways you can re-clarify and create critique that's a dialogue, whether that be an in-person physical dialogue or virtually, and have that dialogue conversation. It's very important that it's a two-way street. And to practice that, what we're going to do is we are going to give you some time to practice critique. So it says 20 minutes on the slides, but I'll check in around the 15, 20-minute mark. If you go into Canvas, you should see an assignment for in class today about critique practice, and you're going to want to download that file, work on it, and you're going to critique each other in groups. So it's going to be responsible for finding somebody in your group to critique. You're going to partner with them, trade your papers back and forth, whether that be through email, Google, however you want to share it, and then provide critique. And as you're going through, think about the importance of sharing not only the information of your discipline, within providing that general feedback within the assignment, evaluating the feedback, how you receive it at first, but then to make sure it's a conversation and that open dialogue, evaluate it again by discussing in person once you've finished kind of the first parts of the assignment, and then discuss with your group. Come together as a group and say, person A gave me this comment, person B gave me this comment. Here is how I am thinking of it. Here's maybe questions I have, a little more information, and ask those clarifying questions. But we'll give you about 15, 20 minutes to work on this. And if you do have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. Okay, we're gonna bring it all together. If you still need a little bit more time on this assignment, don't worry. My goal is to get through the lecture and then give you some time to work on this as well as the other in-class assignment at the end of class. But let's bring it back together and we're going to continue with the lecture. And we're going to go to one of Darby's favorite images. So, types of disciplinarity. We've seen these circles before. There is interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, cross-disciplinarity, interdisciplinary, and then transdisciplinarity. And can somebody tell me what is the difference between this cross-disciplinary circle over here in the middle and then this transdisciplinarity over here? Right now, you're in interdisciplinary or intradisciplinary, which means your actual majors, the people the most similar to you. But as we move on, you're going to get a little bit of cross-disciplinarity, and then you're going to get a lot of transdisciplinarity. That is our goal, is to turn you into transdisciplinary learners for this class. Can anybody tell me, just by looking at the circles, what the difference might be between cross-disciplinarity and then transdisciplinarity?
With cross-disciplinary, each of the circles is still like its own circle, whereas with transdisciplinary, all the circles have overlapped. So in people terms, basically, it's the difference between staying in your lane and sort of like dabbling in all the different lanes.
I could not have said it better. That idea of dabbling in something that is not yours. So if we think of the field of the medical sciences, where are my neuroscience people, my chemistry, my biologist in the room? Okay, so I'm looking at you guys when I say this. So if you come together and you say, we need to operate on this human being, imagine this is my operating table now. You are operating on the human being. Neuroscientist, you're going to focus on the brain. Chemist, you might focus on providing anesthesiology. We have a cardiologist, you might focus on the heart. Pulmonologist, you might focus on the lungs. The big thing being, each of you is going to stay in your own lane when conducting that surgery if we are under cross-disciplinarity. You're working to solve a common problem, which is having the operation, but you're staying in your own lane. When we cross over into transdisciplinarity, that is when maybe the neuroscientist is now going to focus on something that is not neuro. Maybe they say, I'm going to go focus and dabble on a little bit of political science and realize what might the ethics of this surgery be. And somebody else might cross over into a different field. They might go into economics and say, what is the most cost-efficient way we can do this if they don't have that background in economics? So when you begin to transport yourself out of your lane into a different field, from one discipline into another discipline, you're crossing over, you're transcending. That is when you become transdisciplinarity or a transdisciplinarian. Keep that in mind as we go throughout this semester and as we're working. Familiarize yourself with this image that when you do transdisciplinarity and transdisciplinary work, you are crossing over. But today,
Hey, do me a favor and y'all listen. Excuse me. He's teaching one of the most important slides of the semester, yellow hoodie. Please pay attention. This one is super important.
so as Professor Jones said, it is one of the most important slides. Keep this in mind. Come back to this. A lot of the information I am presenting to you today lays the framework for not only your portfolio, but the rest of your success in the semester. That's why we invited Tuesday's class students here. We want you to have this in-person lecture experience so you can internalize it and really take the notes and learn from these slides. And I am big on only using pictures, so take a lot more notes on what I'm saying versus what's on the screen.
We're gonna give him some grace, right?
We are going to give them.
Can you say the difference between those two one more time? Because I don't want them to miss it because they were talking within their group. They were still chatting.
So cross-disciplinarity, that is when, imagine this is my operating table up here. If I'm a neuroscientist, I'm going to be focusing on the brain. I'm going to be staying in my lane. If I have a chemist, I might be doing the anesthesiology side. I'm going to be doing something that focused to chemistry. We're working on one common problem, but we are really staying in our lanes. However, when we go into transdisciplinarity, that is when we're going to transcend. Maybe the neuroscience person says, rather than focus on the brain, I'm going to focus on what are the ethics of this surgery, take a more political science approach to things. Maybe the chemist then says, I'm going to go cross over into the discipline of economics and realize, is there a cheaper way we can do the surgery? Is there something more cost effective that we can do? We are transcending our lane and going into a different discipline. So think of your discipline as your lane. I really like the person and the student who said that. And then when you transcend that lane, go into a different discipline or a different lane, you are transdisciplinarian. Okay, while I'm still giving people a few minutes of time, I'm going to let Darby and Professor Henshaw, Professor Jones run around with microphones. Does anybody want to share their answer to the question? What is the difference between, gotta go back to the other side. Yes, what separates a novice versus a master in their field? We got experience.
I said a master has more experience and greater understanding / knowledge on this specific field, while a novice has less.
Absolutely. Get one more answer out there.
I said being able to use the skills from Bloom's taxonomy for the field.
So being able to use Bloom's taxonomy, absolutely. I think you just warmed Professor Henshaw's heart. But we are going to talk about that, and we're going to transcend. We're covering two big topics today, well, three really. Critique, and then into the transdisciplinarity. So transdisciplinarity is made up of a lot of different concepts that are on the screen. Throughout this semester, we're going to talk about the different concepts that make up disciplinarity and transdisciplinarity. But specifically today, we're going to focus on two. The first being mastery of core knowledge. And the important thing right now, unless if you need it for SSD, accommodations, the big thing is I want everyone to look up here. Don't look at your phones. Don't get off TikTok, get off chess, whatever you're doing, Tetris. Walk around the class and know what you guys like to do. I'm going to show you an image, and then I'm going to count from 5. And then once I reach 1, I want you to close your eyes. Okay. Is everyone ready? I'm going to show you the image and count down from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Close your eyes. Okay. Without opening your eyes, raise your hand if you saw a young lady in that photo. Okay, you can lower your hands. Okay, raise your hand if you saw an old woman in that photo. Okay, open your eyes and lower your hands. Raise your hands if you can see both. Okay, so depending on where you look in this image, you will see either a young lady or an old woman. If we come over here and we look, if you look right here, that's the eye, that's the nose going down the jaw, the chin, up into more of the jaw. That is the face of the young lady. You'd be able to see it now. This being her hair, the eye, the nose, chin, jaw. If you struggle to see the young lady, hopefully you are able to see it now. The old woman, you're going to get her eyes now here. This is still her hair, but now her nose comes down here. This would now be her mouth. And then down here is her chin. This is a perfect example of a threshold concept. Threshold concepts are, once you see it, you can't unsee it. That is the big thing. Once you are in a threshold concept for your major, you're unable to jump back. So hopefully you can see it. I'd like to say now, show me just without your eyes closed. Raise your hand if you can see the young lady. Raise your hand if you can see the old woman, or keep it raised. So again, for those who can't see, I saw a few hands go down. The old woman, her eye is right here. This is her nose. She has a very big nose, big chin. Then the mouth is that black line right there. She's wearing a fur coat, and that's a little hat, little feather, all that hair up in there. But hopefully I can demonstrate this a little bit more with something that relates to something everybody knows here in a little bit. But the key parts of threshold concepts for any major is they are transformative, meaning they change your view. They're irreversible. Once you learn the threshold concept, typically you learn it your freshman or sophomore year, you can't unlearn it. It just changes the way you see the whole world around you. Integrative, it exposes previously hidden relationships. It is bounded, which means you really have to have somebody point it out to you first, or you might not notice it. And then it's troublesome, and it can really cause this cognitive dissonance of, once I've learned this, I can't go back. How do I deal with this? How does this really shape how I think? So I'm going to show you another image, and I'm going to ask you what it is. And don't worry, all these slides will be on Canvas, and we are also recording today's lecture because of how important it is, and videos will be provided. What is this, and what does it tell us, and how do we use them? Hopefully everyone has seen one of these before. It's not a trick question. And this is like an open question. What
I think
is
you can
this?
just shout it out, guys.
Yeah.
It's a globe spinning right.
Okay, it's a globe. Thank you. And how do we use globes? What can we use globes for? Political science, international relations people. You're lucky I don't know where in the room you are because this is directed towards y'all. But we use globes to tell us location. We can use it as a beach ball if we want to, depending on what it's made out of. We can use a globe for a lot of different things. But within my major, globes are used to be transformed into maps, and maps can come across in a lot of different ways. We all know what different maps look like. But what if I showed you maps that look like this? For me, as somebody who studies population, migration movements, especially across Asia, maps frequently look like this. So you'll see, this is a map by population. China's the biggest, then India, the United States gets really small. Another way we project this, which is also the most common way, is going to be over here, where you just inflate it by size. The larger the population, the larger there's population concentrations, the bigger that area is. So you can see over here where Beijing might be, you're gonna get a lot. Once you get into some of the Indian cities down here, especially, you're gonna get a lot more. Africa really shrinks. Europe, middle part of it does, but once you get closer to Spain, Portugal, it really shrinks. And Alaska is almost non-existent at that point. But many people don't recognize this map. It gets confusing, and it's really struggling to understand a threshold concept. So let me show you this type of map. In this type of map, you see, these are the most common maps across the American classroom. And what I want everyone to look at specifically is Greenland and Africa. What is wrong with the map when you look at Greenland and Africa specifically? The scale. Whoever said that, round of applause to you. Thank you. So yes, Greenland is not the same size as Africa, really. In fact, Greenland is about 3 times smaller. But if you also look, the state of Texas is really small. You could fit about 3 Texases inside Greenland in reality, but that map doesn't do it to scale. So the most common map in America and a threshold concept, a Mercator projection, is these maps were designed to help people navigate during world wars, to teach people where things are, different positionalities across Earth. If you go from the equator, there's very little distortion, but the bigger the circles get, the closer you get to the poles, the more distortion there is within a landmass. So this last slide, if you look, that in reality is the size of Greenland, that dark circle right there. But that big blue around it is how big it normally looks on most maps. So if you look, Africa, not too much distortion. Greenland, lots of distortion. And another map that demonstrates this is this one right here, a little bit bigger. You can see just how big the countries actually are and compared to how many people see them. hopefully now that you've been shown this process, next time you look at a map, you'll be able to say, or a globe, that's not how big this country actually is. Throws off a real big distortion. And it's one of the things, once you learn, you can't go back. There's tons of different examples of threshold concepts. If we have any cinematography majors, we might get into one a little bit later, depending on time, but we can really go on and on about the different threshold concepts. Does anybody just have any questions about this? It's very important. Just once you learn this, you really can't go back. Okay, so we've covered critique. We've covered threshold concepts, which are very important to how we accept and give critique in the future. We're now going to move on and think ahead to week 7. Right now we're in week 4, but 3 weeks from now, one of the most important assignments is going to come up. And that is skills and value statements, which is part of your portfolio. The 2 professors, Darby and I, can tell you this is the easiest assignment to get a 100 on. This is also the easiest assignment to fail and tank your grade on. Please, please, please take notes, ask questions, internalize this part. So the first word that we're going to give you is skills. Skills are learned abilities and competencies developed through practice and experience. Skills can be taught, measured, and improved over time. I can teach you a skill. It might take me some time, but I guarantee I could teach you how to do something. That is a skill. Values are different from skills. Values are core beliefs and principles that guide decisions and behaviors. They represent what someone considers important and worthwhile in life. So a skill versus a value. The bold words are the key important things. Make sure you're internalizing that. Just how that circle slide is important, these next few slides are going to be the most important ones, especially as we go on. So there's skills, values, and then a third one, which you won't have to write about, but we think is important to define, is traits. Traits are inherent characteristics of personality or temperament that tend to be relatively stable. Where they can be developed or modified, traits are more innate than skills. So your skills are something no matter where you are in life, no matter whether you're 5 or 50, you can be taught a skill. Your values are things that you're going to develop over time. They're going to really make you who you are as a person, who you might become friends with, how you really think about yourself in your values really within the world. Traits then are going to be less taught and really become more concrete by the time you finish college. Your personality traits, who you are as a person, what you do, how you do that, how you act in different situations. Once your brain's fully developed, most of your traits become pretty concrete. You can change them, but it's not something you can be taught. It's going to be something that through lived experiences, your traits might change, but they're going to be more steadfast, more concrete. In order to demonstrate this, we are going to play a little game. So I want everyone in their groups to quickly elect a leader. You're just going to have, I don't know, 30 seconds to elect a leader. Okay, leaders, have you been elected? Okay. So leaders, your job is going to be to work with your groups to answer these questions. I'm going to give everyone about a minute to think about this. This is Family Feud, one of my favorite game shows of all time. I religiously watch Family Feud. The top 6 answers are on the board. We surveyed 2 TAs and 4 professors on what do employers consider the top 6 skills. I'll give you 1 minute to talk quietly amongst your groups. And then your leader, I'm going to pick one at random. And you're going to have to tell me, what do you think is the top skill?
And remember, we just went over the difference between skills, values, and traits. So think about that.
Okay, if you haven't picked up on it already, I'm really fast at counting. So your minute is up. So leaders, please stand up. Raise leaders. Okay. Leaders, please remain standing if you think you can tell me what is the top skill that TAs, recruiters, employers, that we look for. Please remain standing if you think you could tell us it. Sit down if you don't think you can tell us it. Okay, great. Professors, feel free to pick somebody standing. Don't say it out loud. Wait till you have a microphone.
Communication?
Okay. We've got communication. Do you agree? Do you disagree?
We think it's critical thinking.
Critical thinking, okay.
Communication.
So this
I know.
it wants to work. Oh yeah. Communication is the top skill. Some other leaders, you can sit down. Okay. So be thinking as I go through these next slides, and as you can go back and look at these slides because they'll be provided on Canvas. I am providing you with 6 skills in your skills and value statement that you can reference because I guarantee everyone has these skills and values. Number 2, problem solving, very important skill. Number 3, time management. Number 4, leadership. 5 is digital literacy, the ability to use computers to navigate and find sources that relate to your field. And then writing, the ability to produce your own research and write within your field, and simply just in layman's terms, going back to communication, not only verbal, but written forms.
Jason, can I clarify something really quick?
Absolutely.
So what we're talking about is in a couple of weeks, you will have a writing assignment due called the skills and values statement, in which you have to lay out the skills that you have or want to learn within your discipline, and maybe identify some skills that can transfer across different like disciplines or situations. And then you also have to identify your values that drive you and kind of like why you do the things you do. And in our history from doing this class more than once, a lot of students ignore the values and just write about skills, or they think that skills and values are just interchangeable words, and they're saying things like, I value leadership. And we're like, that's not a value, that's a skill, or something like that. So that's why we're kind of going over this, so you guys know what the difference is and know that you're supposed to write about both of these things.
The easiest way to be successful on that assignment is to say, my skills are, this skills describe how they apply. Paragraph 2, my values are, list values, describe. But we've done skills. Now you can elect a new leader or keep the same one. I'll give you a minute, top 6 answers on the board, figure out what your values might be. Okay, again, we are going to bring it together. Leaders, stand up. This time you don't get the choice to sit down. You only got the choice the first time. So present the microphones to whoever. Do not wait to say it out loud.
Integrity.
Okay, so integrity is the first one. Do you agree, disagree?
Integrity.
Integrity?
Yes.
Oh, I said compassion is the first one.
Okay, I will tell you. Somebody in the room is correct, but we might have another one.
Empathy?
Empathy? Okay,
Fantastic.
We'll see.
Fantastic.
We've got 3 different answers. Does anybody want to put a 4th one up there?
Responsibility.
Responsibility, okay. Any other leaders disagree?
Work ethic.
Work ethic?
I also said compassion.
Okay, we got another compassion. I'm not keeping track. Okay, you can sit down.
Integrity and ethics.
Okay, integrity and ethics. I will tell you, you all listed some great values. So whether or not they are up there shouldn't be too important. There is no really ranking to these stuff. Somebody mentioned that a great skill is teamwork. Teamwork is an excellent skill to have that was not on the board. So keep that in mind, especially if you're in athletics, if you're going different fields. Everyone needs teamwork. But values that we put on the slides were integrity, that was there, accountability, innovation, collaboration, empathy, and then service, ut prosum, being Virginia Tech, an important one. I think everyone at this university can relate to the idea that we do value service. So traits, just to save us some time, and because you don't have to write about them, I am going to present you guys with some traits so that way you can think about them and just have them in your notes, and they're also on the slides. Adaptability, initiative, reliability, emotional intelligence, resilience, and then conscientiousness. Those are some traits. Again, once you get to a certain point, they're harder to change. They're more steadfast. They can be changed, but they are a little more traits, a little harder to change once your brain is fully developed. So we've talked about mastery of core knowledge. There's one more, but as we continue throughout the coming weeks, we are going to cover all these different topics of disciplinarity. We want to talk about collaboration. That's why I had you guys elect a leader. It's important to collaborate and to communicate. But we're going to do one of my favorite activities of the entire semester. And I'm going to give you about 5 to 10 minutes to work on this, actual 5 to 10 minutes. But Virginia Tech has received a $100,000 grant. $100,000 to a university isn't that much money. Keep that in mind. Grant to improve campus life on campus. How would you allocate the funds in your group? Make sure that you're brainstorming ideas, you're discussing and evaluating the ideas. We cannot build a new building. We cannot tear down Slusher. They are too expensive for that. I know. There is arbitrary an answer in here that I think is the best answer that does work within this. If you get it, I'll be happy and maybe I'll bring you candy next week. But write a justification for those proposals and make sure you agree on the top 3 proposals. I'm going to give you until about 5:57, 5:58 to get this done. Just make sure you're working with your groups. You don't want other groups stealing your ideas, so whisper, whisper. Bonus points if you get the correct answer in my book. Okay, we're going to get ready to bring it on back together. Okay, another maybe 30 seconds. Again, just make sure you do have a leader, because leader, you're going to be responsible for picking out the top 3 ideas. Okay, leaders, stand up. Okay, hopefully we can hit as many of you guys as possible, but share your top idea with me. We're going to start here because I see that you have a microphone.
Oh, we said that we'd like to add AC to most of the dorms don't have AC.
Too expensive, unfortunately. You could not do that with $100 or $100,000. You definitely could do it with 100, but 100,000 too expensive, unfortunately. Back here,
We said improving the transit system, like adding either parking lots or more buses or something like that.
probably too expensive, but possibly, maybe depending on how you want to do it. Back here,
We said add a hot tub to each dorm.
add a hot tub to each dorm. If it's a small hot tub, you might be able to and stuff. It's not going to be big and it's not going to be in ground, but maybe. Right in here.
We said improving the bathrooms in Slusher Tower.
Okay,
Renovating.
specifically, you limit it to one dorm. You limit it to the bathrooms. That's doable. Back here,
We said we would reinvest it and then use the returns for their other initiatives.
repeat that one more time.
Reinvest the 100K.
Okay, reinvest, grow it into more money. You can always do that.
Taking it to Vegas. That's right.
Yes. Back here.
We said to do grants for club funding.
Okay, split it up amongst clubs. Giving Day is coming up, so if you do want money for your club, make sure that you encourage to donate back to the university. Start young. Very important.
Better walking paths and roads so you can actually get to places more quickly.
Okay, depending on what you build those out of, very doable.
Add an arcade space in the break zone to increase the amount of activities that you can do there.
Okay, you might have those games for about a week until they break down, but possible. Right in the back.
We said better food at D2.
Better food at D2, depending on how much better you want. It might be like half a star better.
We said more supply and lower costs for like snacks food and drinks in the dining hall.
Okay, if you use that to maybe get like somebody to do the policy, you might be able to and stuff and write the policy for that.
We said more scholarships for students.
Okay, more scholarships. Certainly, you can break that up.
Food delivery robots.
Food delivery robots, possibly, depending. I don't know how much those cost. You might be able to get 2. I think they're pretty expensive. Over here in the green, just shout it out. I can hear you. Making the mailroom more efficient. So whether that be tearing down a wall or just making it more open, very possible.
We said like putting a huge tent or like some sort of infrastructure over the drill field so you aren't like you don't get all the weather conditions, not all the wind, all of that. You don't get that as you walk through.
But what about the snowball fight?
Fun fact, we did part of that during the pandemic, but I won't go back that way. Okay, any other leaders want to quickly share? Down here?
We said adding sidewalks or stepping stones to well-traveled areas, specifically connecting the drill field to Pamplin because I have to walk through mud every day and it's so annoying. Thank you.
I agree with that. As somebody who also has to go.
We said hiring more like dining staff to make like the dining halls more efficient.
Absolutely. And I would say, argue that you might not even need the $100,000 grant to do that. You just need people to apply and more information out there. Okay, you can sit down. Nobody said my favorite answer. Oh, okay. Wait, go ahead.
Well, we said, we just, okay. Well, one of our ideas was changing the Blacksburg Transit app because it's really bad. And we wouldn't have to maybe get new buses, which would cost more than $100,000 if the app was more efficient and students
Okay.
could use it.
It is making the app more efficient, certainly could do that within that range. Arguably, in my scholarly opinion, as somebody who has been at Virginia Tech for 5 years, raise your hand if you live in a dorm. Raise your hand if you have lived in a dorm. Okay, with the $100,000, you could give every student in the dorm about 3 rolls of 2-ply toilet paper for an entire semester. That is arguably one of my favorite answers that was given. But as we went through this, let's debrief. How did your group manage time between brainstorming and decision making? Did you rely on me to tell you when you had 2 minutes? Or was somebody really watching the time? Just be thinking about that one. Were there any challenges in reaching a consensus amongst the group? Did any groups have any challenges where somebody was really, really passionate that, yes, this should be an idea, and shut it down? Did nobody not speak up? And then how did you ensure all group members' ideas were considered? I would like to hear, just from maybe 1 or 2 students, how did you ensure that all group members' ideas were considered? Down in the front.
Well, we pretty much all discussed together and shared our own opinions. And then we also had someone read it over just to ensure that they agreed and had their ideas reflected in the writing.
Absolutely. Maybe one other person down here. How did you ensure? Absolutely. So there's a wide variety of ways you can ensure that every voice is heard. But whenever you are working in teamwork, an important skill to have is important skill being teamwork is to make sure that you are able to have everybody loan a little bit of time. Make sure that everyone's listening. If you're an introvert who really likes hearing your own voice through a microphone and standing up here, make sure you give other people the time to maybe speak, to chime in and really have their moments to talk. So think about that as you're working not only in this group, with your disciplinary and transdisciplinary groups. Everyone should get some time to speak, share their ideas. Keep that in mind for whenever you're working, no matter this class or others. But some key takeaways are effective collaboration involves balancing idea generation with evaluation. So if you didn't rely on me for those 2 minutes, make sure that you do take that in. You're not always going to have somebody there to say, and pretty much put the gutters blockers up and say, here's you need to remain on track. Then time management is crucial. If I just said you have the entire class to decide on this, you might pull out your phones, you might start gaming, but you might forget the whole purpose of why you're there. It's important to always time manage whenever you are in college. Consensus building is an important aspect of teamwork. Hopefully there wasn't too much conflict, but it's always good to present a unified idea or find a part of a unified idea that you can really stake your name to and say, maybe I disagreed with the big idea, but here's the aspect I really agree with, and here's what I'm going to present on if I'm presenting it to somebody. Diverse perspectives can lead to more innovative solutions. Obviously, the more ideas you consider, the better. I know Professor Jones is going to present on that in a few weeks. And then clear communication is essential for rapid collaborative tasks. If I presented this lecture, think back to the skills and values slide, if I put those words in Mandarin Chinese, I might be the only person in the room who could understand them. Some other people might understand them as well. But I guarantee if I was not having clear communication between this and the slides, my voice, what I was presenting, people would be very, very confused. But now that we've debriefed, there is a group assignment. You have some time today, and then it's due next week. So you do have some time to work on it outside of class. But you're going to start today working online or finishing up that first in-class assignment from earlier today. And what we're going to do is really identify 3 faculty members in your department. So within your disciplinary group or within your discipline, find their research description summaries and identify key terms listed in their description. Search online document criteria text that tell you the threshold concepts for your discipline. So you're really going to begin to look into those threshold concepts a little bit more. Remember, the threshold concepts are like that painting of whether it's a young woman or an old lady, which one you see first, once you see it, you can't go back. Then for next week, complete before February 17th. That might be the Monday date. I'd have to recheck to make sure that's the correct date. But it is. Okay, that's for the Monday class because I gave that lecture. So complete before the following class for you guys, a disciplinary learner statement resubmission, make the edits based on the critique you got today, the Honors College reflection, and the VT Honor College credit tracker practice. Those are 2 assignments due before class. Make sure you have them done because we're going to bring in more special guests next week. And having that work done and complete is going to save you a lot of time, not only on your grade, not only on your portfolio, but also just a wide variety of things. And Darby and I are not trained in doing that, so you'll have time with them to ask those questions. And that'll be your only time they'll be here in class in person. Do you see a question over here?
We'll double check the due dates and fix it.
But you pretty much have the remainder of class for that. If you do have a question, raise your hand, come up, find us. Y'all have been amazing. I really appreciate it. This is only my second time lecturing to this big of a group, so I really appreciate it. Y'all have been amazing.